Sci-fi, horror, fantasy, absurdism in the extreme. It's all available here in the Tales from the Omni Vault book series. Check the description for Amazon links so you can get your copies and start reading today. Thank you all, and now, on to the video. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni Viewer, and I bring to you another bit of MonsterVerse news, this time coming from the realm of comic books. You remember how not too long ago we got a crossover between the MonsterVerse and the DC universe entitled Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong? Well, apparently that series did so well, it's getting a sequel, appropriately entitled Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong 2. Now, hyperbole aside, there are three things that we currently know about this crossover, or at least this is what's been reported as far as I've seen. First of all, the plot is going to be the inverse of the first crossover. In the first crossover, it was the Titans coming to the DC universe. This time around, it'll be the Justice League and Legion of Doom going to the MonsterVerse. Second thing we know, which is perhaps the most shocking, is that apparently Lee Shaw, the character played by Kurt and Wyatt Russell in Monarch Legacy of Monsters, is going to play a prominent role. That's at least what's being reported. Supposedly this is him standing with Lex Luthor in what appears to be an alliance, which is weird because Lee Shaw isn't a villain, at least not outside of that one episode that was written by Mariko Tamaki. But, you know, if that is him, I don't know if he's going to stay a villain, but it's an interesting choice. And the third bit of information we know, which is the one thing that has me really excited, is that King Ghidorah, Mothra, and Rodan are going to be in this one. You may recall they weren't in the first one. The primary focus was on Godzilla, Kong, a bunch of original Titans, and eventually leading up to Mechagodzilla. And I'm pretty sure that the way they got Mechagodzilla was that DC kind of played the system, because, you know, you have to pay individual rights for each different Toho monster, but if you look at the title, it's Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, so Godzilla vs. Kong is also the title of the movie that Mechagodzilla is in the MonsterVerse, so I have a feeling that they just sort of went, oh, what if we just take the whole movie, and then we can just use whatever inside? You cool with that? Cool. Hey, look, we got Mechagodzilla. I don't know if that's what happened, but it's what I suspect. But now, we're bringing in the others. And again, I know people are going to say, but what about the continuity? King Ghidorah's dead. Well, again, I'm pretty sure, like I've mentioned before, these books are kind of meant to be their own thing. Not necessarily going for hard canon if for either universe. So we were establishing a DC universe that's just sort of a generalized, this is what you would recognize the DC universe to be sort of thing. Probably going to be a similar deal with the MonsterVerse, where the Titans are just sort of present. I don't know. I haven't read it. You haven't read it. Nobody really knows at this point. Now, of course, I did say that has me excited, but am I overall excited for this? Well, I did issue-by-issue reviews of the series as it came out, and obviously I got the hardcover complete collection. And I feel like my overall assessment of it is that I love the premise. I'm not overly thrilled with how it played out. Because there's an undeniable cool factor of seeing these characters together in an official crossover. Obviously, I'm a huge Godzilla, Kong, and kaiju fan. I'm also a big DC fan, actually. Not that I hate Marvel, I just like DC a little bit more. And getting to see them together, I mean, I cannot deny that it is something that I never thought was going to happen, and here it is. But at the same time, the plot had way too much going on and did not pace itself in a way that it actually was able to explore everything. Like, you know, certain things it clearly prioritized and delivered on. You want to see Superman fight Godzilla? You see Superman fight Godzilla. But as for other things, well, you have stuff like how Gorilla Grodd is initially set up as planning to hatch some sort of a scheme that involves Kong. Then he's gone for most of the series until the very end, where he spontaneously shows up again to enact his plan. What is his plan? Not really clarified, and it gets stopped pretty quickly before he can even make that much progress with it. Speaking of plans that are not clarified, the League of Assassins goes to Skull Island, steals the skull of the Skull Devil, and dips it in the Lazarus Pit to turn it into an abomination of some sort. Why? Your guess is as good as mine. We really don't know what was going on with that one. Lex Luthor rebuilds Mechagodzilla and has full control of it, and it seems like he's being set up to be the final opponent, but he gets taken down before Godzilla and Superman can show up to the final battle. The plot was a little bit messy. In fact, it was very messy. So I would not call it one of the greatest comics of all time, and yet I still cannot deny that it brings a smile to my face seeing official images of Godzilla and Superman charging into Metropolis side by side, or Kong getting to wield a Green Lantern ring. I mean, like I said, the cool factor is definitely there. It's just not supported by overall good plotting. Now, that being said, what would I like to see out of this sequel? For starters, obviously, since I just talked about the plotting, I'd like to see the plot of the sequel streamlined somewhat. Like, we don't have to have a dozen different subplots happening all at once and not devote enough attention to them to make it feel satisfying. You know, have a conflict with the superheroes and the humans in the MonsterVerse. Have a conflict with the Titans, which seems to be pretty clear since Ghidorah's showing up. Have those two intertwine by the end, you're already on the right path, if that's what they're going for. I don't know if that's what they're going to do, I just hope it's what they're going to do. I also don't want to see the returning Toho monsters wasted. Now, in the first crossover, they were definitely happy to use Godzilla as much as possible. In fact, he's one of the most active parts of the overall plot. Kong, on the other hand, he spends most of his time just farting around on Skull Island until Grodd shows up and does his thing, which doesn't really happen until the very end. And I know that recently on TwitX, people have been throwing fits about how they think Kong is going to be the primary focus and Godzilla's going to disappear from the MonsterVerse, you know, just like he was supposed to do a few years ago. And they're basing that on how supposedly Season 2 of Monarch's going to be more Kong-focused, and that first official MonsterVerse video game is Kong-focused and everything. But you know, I'm not the sort of person who hates Kong. I like to see him active, and I'm a little bit disappointed he wasn't more active in this particular crossover at first. But now that we're bringing in Ghidorah, Mothra, and Rodan, I really want to see them used well, because, you know, they're actual big names. I do not want to see them wasted. I'm guessing Ghidorah is going to be the ultimate antagonist that they'll have to deal with at the end. How Mothra and Rodan will play in, if it'll be exactly the same as we saw in King of the Monsters, or if they're going to shake it up and have Rodan be one of the good guys this time around, I don't know. But I want to see them get their dues as well, and maybe do a bit more of paralleling the Titans with the DC heroes and villains. I'm sure there's a way to. And ultimately, I do not want them to lose the cool factor. I don't think they're going to. I mean, if anything, they've only increased it by bringing in the other Toho monsters. But I am also hoping that the cool factor is actually supported by something this time. Also, alongside this announcement is our first look at a figure line based on this crossover. Now, it's McFarlane Toys doing it, and they've decided to start with Batman versus Kong. Now, obviously, the figures are not going to be to scale. Looks like Batman's going to be the standard 7-inch scale. In fact, I've seen people saying this is actually a pre-existing Batman model they're using. Kong is going to be bigger, but he's obviously not going to be to the proper scale. I'm guessing he's probably going to be somewhere in the size of like Darkseid or Steppenwolf from Zack Snyder's Justice League. You know, one of those bigger figures, but not gigantic, not like the figures that are flanking me, certainly. Overall detail for the figures looks good and all. No announcement has been made on what other figures are going to be in this line, if any. I'm guessing, however, that Todd McFarlane definitely has his sights set on getting Godzilla somehow, and he's kind of starting with this because he figures, obviously, Batman is going to sell, and Kong, of course, is the cheaper of the two headliner monsters. So if the set does well, maybe then he'll feel more confident splurging on a Godzilla vs. Superman one. Again, I don't know. I just know that this set exists. I haven't seen it gone up for pre-order as of this video's posting, but I'm sure it will be done soon. And otherwise, you know, that's the big news at this point. The comic is going to release sometime in the summer of 2025. I don't believe we have an exact date just yet, which means we're probably going to get that date once this video is up, which means it'll already be outdated. But either way, something to look forward to for next year. Another way to sort of fill the gap as we wait for the next movie, whatever that next movie winds up being. And that's it. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.